and we learnt about variable declaration. Variables are declared by using different types. One second. Okay, so last session we learnt about working with variables, and we learnt about different rules of configuring variables. So what is difference between var, let, and const? So you remembered those differences. Var is function scope, and var allows declaring, initialization, and assignment. Var allows shadowing, var allows hoisting. What is shadowing? Redeclaring or reinitializing same name identifier, that is var. Shadowing, right? Hoisting means the process of using and later declaring, right? And let is more restricted than var. Let will not allow, it will not allow hoisting, it will not allow shadowing. Constant is more restricted than let. Constant will allow only initialization, it is only for initializing. So variables can be declared by using this. Right? Next important, we will see another important concept is about we call as global scope. So global scope, actually global scope of variable is defined by declaring outside function and inside a module scope, outside function and inside module scope, then we call it as what? Global. Actually global scope for a variable is defined by declaring outside function and inside module scope. What is meant by module scope is actually generally seen. So module scope is nothing but, suppose you are using a JavaScript file. Suppose this is a JavaScript file. In this JavaScript file, this is JS file. In this JavaScript file, this entire code area is called module. That means the entire file scope is called as a module. And actually, what is a module? I will tell you in OOP concept, we will see. Generally, module is a collection of values, functions, classes, and all. In a module, you can have set of functions, set of classes, and set of values. And important is this is called module scope. And what is the module name? The file name is used as module name. That means what is a which module you are using now? We are using index. So we will discuss detailedly about modules later. But what is module scope means? You declare a variable here. It is accessible to all functions. It is accessible to all functions. So if you are dealing with a separate JavaScript file, then it is module scope. If you are not dealing with a JavaScript file, you are dealing with a HTML file. In that, you want your variable global so that it can be accessed by all functions. So actually, what is the point? Here we have use strict and strict. And here what we are defining, we are defining a simple function as function 1. And we are having another function called function 2. Now we want to access both functions, function 1 and function 2. Now I am declaring a variable x as 10. Please close the door. We are declaring a variable as x. So x is equal to 10. Now, can we access this x outside the function? Not possible, because every variable maximum scope is what? Function. That means even you declare with var, it is accessible only in this function. It is not accessible outside. So it is not available to use in function 2. Then we can declare this variable outside the function. Remember, outside the function, variable can be declared by using var, or we can declare by using let, or we can even declare or initialize by using const. XYZ is equal to this. Many times people have a wrong idea because some websites will misguide you. Some websites, YouTube channels will tell you that global variables are declared with var, right? So global variable is not about which keyword you use. Global variable is about where you declared. Global variable can be declared with var or with let or with const. Anything is global. Global is not about which keyword you used. Global is about where you have declared. Where you have declared. So global variables indicate that you can access from any function. And if you have to declare a global variable, you need to keep it outside function. And you can use anything, var, let, or const. So here I am using document.write. I'm saying, so here, so function 1. I'm using here function 1. And in function 1, we are printing the value of x, y, and z like options, right? That means we are writing in function 1. So f1 x is equal to what? The value of x. I'm just printing the value of x. The value of x I'm printing. So let me give in a simple, because you don't know others now. X is equal to the value of x. And in the next line, I defined y is equal to the value of y. In the next line, z is equal to the value of z. This is in function 1. So I will put a line break here. So line break br. So this is function 1. So this is function 1. In that we are printing this. Now I will use the same here. Same I am trying to access in function 2. They are accessible. You can access in function 1. You can access in function 2. The variable you declared here, they can be accessed in any function because they are global in access. That means you need to declare a variable global just by configuring outside the function or in the module area, right? If it is a JavaScript file, we call it as module. Now you can see that this is going to use those functions and it is going to handle them. Function 1 XYZ is accessing, function 2 XYZ is accessing. So they are global in access. So a global variable can be declared with any keyword. Global variable is decided based on where you declared. That means it's not depending on which keyword you have used. So that is important. Now, in many interviews, one question is asked actually. In many interviews, one regular question asked is, can we define a global variable, so inside a function? Can we declare a global variable inside a function? Inside a function, any variable is not global actually. Inside a function, you declare any variable using var or let or const. Any variable inside a function is not global. That means it is accessible only inside the function. But the answer for this is yes. That means we can define a global variable inside a function also. So how this is possible? How this is possible to declare a global variable inside function? This is not possible in every situation, but this is possible to declare a global variable in function. Actually, there are two situations. One is you have to turn off strict mode. You have to turn off strict mode and define a variable in function without keyword. Define variable without keyword. Defining variable means if strict mode is on, it will not allow. If strict mode is on, declaring variable is compulsory, right? Keyword is compulsory if you use strict mode on. So you have to turn off the strict mode and declare variable. So in function without keyword, it becomes global. That is the nature of a variable. So that means now you see here, that is one situation you see here. So I am using XYZ. Inside function 1, I am defining example where a is equal to 100 like this. Now what I will do is I want to print the value of a. Then here I am printing the value of a at the end. Let me print the value of a. A is equal to what? A. But a is a variable which is declared where? So it is declared inside function 1. So it is accessible inside function 1. I am trying to access the same inside function 2. I am trying to access the same inside function 2. Inside function 2, I am trying to access. Now, when I am trying to access in function 2, it's not possible. You can see here, function 1, it is working. In function 2, it is not accessible. That means I am using console. You see, in A is not defined in function 2. So function 1, it is okay. In function 2, it is not accessible. Because it is a variable which is defined in function 1, it can be accessed only in function 1. But I will remove this keyword for it. If I remove this keyword, then it is invalid. Why? Because currently strict mode is on. When strict mode is on, declaring variable is compulsory. So it says A is not defined. I will remove the strict mode. When I remove this strict mode, then you can see that the variable A is allowed. In function 1, it is working. In function 2 also, it is working. So at experience level, these kind of questions are common, right? That means they ask, can we define a global variable inside a function? Because this kind of situation comes in so many occasions. What we want is, we want to declare a variable and store some data into it only on a particular function. Means I clicked a button. On button click, I need to get the data and store it. Variable must be declared only when button is clicked. After that, I should able to access the data outside the button click, outside that function. In that case, how you declare a variable? If you put global, it is accessible to everybody, right? That means a variable must be declared only when the button is clicked. But once the button is clicked, the variable must be available to others also. So directly we don't put global. We will put in a function and make it global. Remember, A is not allocated until or unless you call the function, understood? Because it is defined in which location? Function A. Function A. That means suppose I am not calling function 1. F1 is not called. And I run that. Then you see it's an error. A is not defined. That means the function 1 must be called. Then only it will be declared. So, but it is global. Inside a function, a variable is declared with global access. And that is possible only when you do this thing. This is one technique. This is one concept. So turn off the strict mode, define a variable in function without a keyword. That is example. That is one situation. Let me copy this. Another situation is nothing but, so you can define, so you can declare a global variable. You can declare a global variable. You can declare a global variable. So inside function using window object. Using window object, you can do that. Because window is the parent object of all browser. Entire browser parent is window. Entire parent of browser is window. I told you DOM hierarchy now. DOM, document object model. We discussed about DOM. Actually, how the DOM looks like. That means what is the hierarchy of DOM I showed you. This is the actual DOM hierarchy. This is the actual DOM hierarchy. In this, generally only this part, this document part, only this part comes under, only this part, document related, only this part comes under, it comes under DOM. Only that is DOM. The outside part, it is actually referred as, BOM, browser object model. Document object model means it is related to only HTML page. Is in a browser, is only HTML page is the content? No, browser have history, browser have address bar, browser have buttons, browser have toolbar, browser have a close, minimize buttons. All these comes under browser object. In browser object, one HTML page is loaded, then it is considered as DOM. DOM belongs to only HTML page and BOM belongs to browser. Now, when you say window, then suddenly what happens? The memory is allocated for browser. In browser memory, value is stored. If in browser memory value is stored, you can access from anywhere. From any function you can access. That is possible by making window.
That means what we do is you can do that here like this. That means what you can do. So I will put strict mode now, because we don't want developers to remove strict mode. So we will put use strict. And if I put strict mode without declaring, you can't use it. It is compulsory to declare. So without declaring, you cannot use it. So A is not defined. So then how to declare? If I use var, it's not accessible outside. LET not accessible outside. Constant not accessible outside. Then we have to use window. Window dot the variable name. These are dynamic variables. You can store data into them. That means variable is allocated based on the window memory. That means the browser memory. So they are accessible anywhere now. Now you can see it is accessible everywhere. So this is not possible if you are using JavaScript in server side or JavaScript in any another technology. This is possible only when you are using JavaScript with regard to browser, means with regard to HTML. I told you JavaScript is used server side. Server side, there will be no window object. Window object comes only client side. When JavaScript is used client side, then only you can use this. Majority of front-end developers, they can declare a global variable inside function by using which keyword? Window. But the people who are using JavaScript in the backend, they have no chance of this, because window is not available for them. Window is only related to front end, right? In that case, what they do, they can use another technique which I showed you. That means they can just define a name and turn off the strict mode. That is only the way we have. So this is another technique. How you can define a global variable inside a function. So can we declare global variable with var? Global variable can be declared with var or let or const, right? Global is about where you declared. It is not about which keyword you have used. Where you declared it, you declared so at the top, so you declared outside the function, that is global. So you can have global variables inside the function also, inside the function, right? This is one important thing you need to know, that is global scope, function scope, and block scope. And people also call it as, actually this call as lexical scope. I told you lexical scope is also refers in the next level. We will discuss detailedly about that, because some more concepts you learn, you can understand them. So technically, this is the rules of defining. These are all the points about defining a variable. Now, when you are configuring variable, generally we have variable naming rules. While naming a variable, as per the standards, certain rules we have to follow. What are the basic variable naming rules? The first important point is variable name must start with an alphabet, or it can start with underscore. Actually, underscore officially not recommended. So, but developers can use underscore. So underscore is used for configuring lot of constructs. It is used for configuring lot of constructs, and lot of constructs are already configured inside our library of JavaScript using underscore. That is the reason when to use underscore for variable name is
Generally, people have an habit actually. See, so this underscore refers that so variable so requires further implementation. Variable requires further implementation. That is a developer's way of designating it. For example, I return some var product. If I return var product, it is a variable. That means its functionality is final. What is the functionality is you can store some data into it. Its functionality is final. Now, if you declare some variable like this, that means var underscore product, you declare like this. If you declare like this, that means it need to be implemented. That means its functionality is not final. So later we will add more functionality to this. Later we will add more restrictions to this. That means a developer's idea of using underscore is to tell other developers that it requires further implementation. That means if I see any variable name starting with underscore, then I will understand that, okay, its functionality is not this. It has a lot of other functionalities which is maybe later implemented. That situation I will show you, because for that we need to learn inheritances. We need to learn about a lot of other OOP concepts. Then you can understand that situation. So when you are declaring a variable, first make sure that variable name must start with an alphabet. So, or it can start with an underscore, but underscore is not recommended every time. It is recommended only when you declare variables that require further implementation. That means, so another point is don't use special characters in variable. Don't use special characters in variable. No special characters are entertained here as per the standards, right? Many times people use different special characters in a variable. And what we should not use, because in different situation, compiler can escape special characters. Due to that, issues will come. So you can use special characters. Here we are discussing about rules. If you say I will not follow rules, that is your problem. That means you should not ask me a question like, can I use, I have seen somewhere some special character is used. We don't care. Why? Because just like you are saying that wearing an helmet and riding a bike is rule, and you say that without helmet also I am riding my bike, what will happen? That is your problem. You are not following the standards. That is your problem. In future you may face a problem, right? That means if anybody is not recommending, that means there are abnormal behavior. Some problems will come in future. That is the point. That means we are discussing rules, right? That means it's not that special characters not allowed. Special characters are allowed, but as per the rule, we are saying don't use. Because using special characters will lead to a lot of issues in later stage, right? That is fine. Another point is, so it can be alphanumeric. Name can be alphanumeric. You can use numbers. And you can define numbers. So that means while giving variable names, you can define numbers. Suppose some product 2022 20 like this. You can define a variable name with a number. Another important is variable name is case sensitive. Case sensitive capitalization matters. That means you used uppercase, you have to use in uppercase, lowercase, lowercase, camel case. That means you have to refer the variable in the same way, in the same capitalization how you declared. That is case sensitive. Another important point, variable name can be maximum 255 characters long. You should not give variable names more lengthy than 255 characters. And very important, as per the standards, avoid using single character and long variable names. While learning, it is okay. X, Y, Z, A, B, C are okay. But never use single characters for variables. So as per the standards, again, because single characters have a lot of meta character problems. For example, you learned in HTML, D. What is D? D is a meta character which represents number. N, that means D is used as /D. N is used as what? /N. These single characters have always an issue. That is the reason don't use single characters and long variable names. Remember, these are all the rules as per ECMA and MDN. These are all the rules as per ECMA and MDN. We are discussing those rules, right? I am not telling you anything new of my own in the rules. I am just explaining the rules what ECMA told about variables. These are the reserved rules they mentioned in the rule set about variables. Those are only the points we are discussing here. So technically, variable names, when you are naming variable, these are rules you have to follow, right? Its name can be 255 characters long. It is case sensitive. It should start with an alphabet. Occasionally you can use underscore. It can be alphanumeric, right? And very important, so variable name, avoid using keywords. Variable name should not be a keyword. That means variable name should not be a keyword like var const, right? Variable name cannot be like var if, right? These are invalid. These are not allowed. So you have to avoid using keywords as variable names. Keywords as variable names. These are not valid. These are invalid. So never use these keywords so as variable names. Another important, as per the rules, so always prefer using, that means always use camel case for naming. Always use camel case for naming variables, for naming. This is very important. Camel case for naming means I want to declare a variable for user password. Then what we do is we will define user and password like this. That means it starts with a lowercase and it will have an uppercase and it ends with an lowercase. This is the camel case representation. While giving the variables, always you have to follow camel case, right? That is variable descriptor. That is basic rule. Generally, you can give any name, right? But as per the standards, these are all the rules we need to follow. We need to follow all these basic rules. If you want to know more rules about ECMA related, JavaScript related rules related to language, you can visit PMD or Sonar like tools. PMD, Sonar are code analyzing tools. These are PMD, Sonar, these are code analyzers, code analyzers. So you can visit this PMD, Sonar. They will inform you about, we already have ESLint. This PMD, Sonar will tell you the rules about coding, not only JavaScript, different. For example, this is PMD. In the PMD, this is a code analyzer. Code analyzer. You see the documentation. In the documentation, you see rule reference is present. You go to the rule reference here. In the rule reference, it shows HTML rules, ECMA rules. JavaScript is what? ECMA script rules. You have rules for HTML, Java rules, HTML rules, PLSQL rules. That means now I say ECMA script rules. It shows best practices, code styles. You see in the code styles, it will show you the rules. Different rules about how do we do. Because just simple example I will tell you. Actually, suppose you are writing a if condition. Somebody tells you that you can write a if condition. After writing the condition, actually if condition requires a curly brace, block and end block. And somebody tells you that without that also you can write a statement. Without using a curly brace, open, close also, you can write a statement. Majority times you will see people doing like that. And somebody will tell you that you can write like this, it will execute the first statement. But actually, as per programming standards, this is bad coding. That means without writing a curly brace is a bad coding. It's not good coding. So because compiler faces difficulty in understanding if you don't use curly brace. You see here in the rule reference, if statements, you see now here it is showing that this is okay and this is bad. This is bad. That means they are saying that using a block to start and end, that is okay. Without that also it works, but this is bad. Who says bad? ECMA itself says bad. That means people who developed the language, they say that don't practice this. Then somebody says this is a shortcut you can try, that's not good. That's not great. Because we should know how compiler understands correctly. And if you are writing some shortcuts and compilers have a difficulty in understanding your shortcuts, then your shortcut is useless. It is time wasting shortcut. That means it is taking more time now to compile and process. That is why we have to follow these all standards, right? These are all the basic rules for naming a variable. When you are naming a variable, these all rules you need to follow, right? So variable declaration, variable initialization, variable assignment, variables global scope, local scope, and one more we learned. So we have global scope, local scope. Local scope means function scope, block scope, right? Function is local and block is also local. Global scope means it is accessible at any place. How to access a global, how to define a global variable inside function? So by turning off strict mode and by removing the declaration keyword. And you can also use window keyword. By using window object also we can do that, but that is not possible in backend wherever we are using JavaScript. It is only used with front end, right? Now, while declaring variables, some important syntaxes you need to know. So variable syntaxes, some important. Suppose I defined var x, comma y, comma z like this. Is it a valid declaration of a variable? It is a valid declaration of variable. Suppose x equal to 10, y is equal to 20, z equal to 30. We are assigning values. Document dot write. So here I am defining x equal to plus x and y is equal to plus y and z is equal to, in the next line, some z is equal to plus z. So we are using these options. That means we are configuring the variable and defining it is valid. That means a set of variables, actually a set of variables can be defined. You can see here in the console, I am referring to that. There is no problem in. That means a group of variables can be configured in this way. And you just configure that and you can use it. And very important, this is possible. That means you can declare multiple variables. You can declare multiple variables. So you can configure multiple variables with single declaration, single keyword reference. You can declare multiple variables with single keyword reference. This is example. What is the keyword? Var. Now important here, can we initialize? Suppose I am saying y is equal to 50. Can we initialize any variable with a value? So in this kind of declaration, can we initialize anything? So you can see that. So when you initialize here, you see initialize is 50. If you initialize here we are reassigning now. So if I don't reassign, that means that initialized value is working fine. That means you can declare, you can initialize in a single line. So multiple variables can be declared and multiple variables can be initialized. With single keyword, you can do that. With single keyword, you can do that. So that means you can configure and you can initialize. And very important is why I am showing these syntaxes, because majority of JavaScript interviews that you attend, JavaScript interviews means even when you are applying as a React developer or Angular developer or some other developer with JavaScript. So these kind of questions are common. That means, so even a React Angular developer, 30-40% of questions will be on JavaScript. On JavaScript at any level, fresher, experience level, any level. And that is the reason why people usually fail the interviews, because they may learn Angular and React, but if you are not strong in JavaScript, you will fail. You will not able to handle. Why? Because 30-40% questions are on JavaScript only, because they are JavaScript libraries, they are JavaScript frameworks, and you can't call yourself as a React or Angular developer without JavaScript. So that is important. That's the reason in such interviews, in general interview means you have to first qualify the written test they give. When you are attending written tests on such interviews at MNC level also, they will give you syntax and they will ask you what is the result of this. These kind of questions are common. That is the reason you need to know consequences. That means if it is defined like this, is it valid? What is the result? What will be the value? All those syntaxes you need to know, because that is what a developer's expertise is. That means we can call developer as the expert if he knows the consequence of a code he written. He knows the issues in the code he written. That is the reason syntax based concepts are regularly asked in interviews. You should be aware of that. So this is valid. This is valid. This is valid. Now, one more actual point here is, suppose you see in this declaration part, that means we are configuring. Suppose I defined here LET. Is it valid? Is it valid? Through LET, is it valid? Through LET, it is valid. It is valid because what happens? It allows declaration, initialization, and is it valid through a constant? It is not valid through a constant, because constant needs initializer every time. Constant needs initializer for every value. Suppose I am initializing x is 10. I'm initializing Z is some 30. That means now I'm not assigning. I should not assign because you see assignment is not allowed now. That means then I remove this. That means the initialization is allowed. Initialization is allowed. The constant configuration and initialization is important. That means depending on which keyword you are using, these all are syntaxes. That means what are the valid syntaxes. Now important, so you will see in many occasions, it is defined like this. Suppose, so we have X equal to Y equal to Z equal to 30. So that means you are initializing the value of Y into X, so Z into Y and 30 into Z. That means now when you are defining the initializations, you see all are 30, that is valid. That means this is also a valid syntax. Now what happens is all these values are initialized into it. All these values, that means 30 is assigned to Z. Actually, it is not assigned, it is initialized into Z. This is initialized into Y. It is initialized into X. It is initialized into X. Now finally the X is constant. In that case, initialization is compulsory. Initialization is compulsory. For example, this is okay. This is initializing the value. I will copy that here. So this is another example. These are all consequences. You will get these type of things in interviews regularly. Consequences. Another important here. Suppose I defined it is a var or let, and I defined so X is equal to Y is equal to Z. Then can you tell me now what are the value of X, Y, and Z? What is there in Z? So actually what it is going to return, it is going to return all as undefined. They're all undefined, na? Values are not defined. You see, Z is not defined. So that means it says this is not defined. This is not defined. If it is not defined, Y is also not defined. This is also not defined. Actually, here very important is, this is technical point to understand. If you are declaring a variable, suppose I am declaring a variable and value is not mentioned into it. That means let X, document.write X is equal to plus X. What is the value of X now? X will return a value called undefined. We will learn about the data type in next point we will discuss. If a variable is declared and value is not defined, it will say undefined. Undefined. But into that variable, you are expecting the value from another variable. Right? You are expecting value of this variable. That means this is not defined. This is not defined. So actually you are printing the value of Y. Y is equal to plus Y. Then what is the consequence here? So it will not take Y as undefined. So it will say that Y is not defined. What is the meaning of Y not defined? It indicates that Y is not declared. It indicates that Y is not declared. Y is not declared. And how you are assigning this? Y is not declared and how you are assigning? There is no declaration at all. That means actually don't think that this is another variable. Understood? This is not another variable. This is not another variable until or unless some value is there into it. That means this is not another variable. Some value is there, then it is a variable. Then this is a variable and it uses which keyword? Let. So that means it is defining 10. But if you are not defining, that means it says that Where is this y variable? I can't find this y variable. That is what happened. If I say z, then it says, where is that z variable? There is no z variable, right? But observe carefully. Suppose if I say lety, now what? Now what is the result of x and y? X and y undefined. Y is declared, value is not there. Na? Value is not there. Then what will be the value? Undefined. Undefined. And that undefined is assigned to x. So x is also undefined. That means it will return both undefined. That is the concept here, right? That means the value is not defined into any variable and you declared, then this will return both undefined. That means y is undefined and what is it? X is also undefined. It is going to display x and y both as undefined, right? So that is one concept you need to know. These consequences are important. And suppose I return some x is equal to y equal to 10. That means y is assigned to 10 automatically. X also will be assigned to 10. These are different consequences in interviews asked about variables. Now, actually, now variables in the new version means from ES6 onwards, variables have a new technique called destructuring technique of variable. Actually, suppose I defined var. So, and I said x and y and z. Into this x, y, z, I want to pass different values. Then how do we pass? I want to initialize different values. Then just now you saw I can initialize like this. How to initialize x equal to 10. Am I right? So y is equal to 20. Like this we can initialize. In the latest version of JavaScript, they introduced a concept called destructuring. In destructuring, what you can do is you can define in a square brace, you can declare the variable x, y, and z. And in that, you can store the values in a square brace. You can pass as 10, 20, 40, like this. This is destructuring technique. Destructuring. Actually, this is a concept of a collection concept called array. But later we will discuss about array. But while declaring variable, this is also a very commonly seen technique. That means what happens is the value of 10 will be stored in x. The value of y will be stored this 20 and 40. Suppose I don't give the 40, then what is the value of z? Undefined. That means you see document.write. I am printing here. X is equal to how to access same x. And in the next line, y is equal to I need to access y. And in the next line, I need to access z is equal to plus what z. That's how we need to define. And you can see that it is going to print x, y, z is undefined. Because there is no value into that z. Into z, I can pass any value. Suppose here I can pass a, then automatically it will print a into that. This is destructuring of variable. Destructuring of variable. The destructuring technique of variable is defined in this way. That means actually later you will learn this in a concept of array. So ES6 introduced destructuring of variable. Actually, destructuring of variables is nothing but, so which allows to define multiple variables using the array meta character. This indicates multiple values, and values are assigned in this way. That means we say var a comma b comma c, and into that, how do we pass the values? For example, now see interesting part here. We are passing the values 10 comma 20 comma 30. It will store those values. Suppose I am passing into a b x y z. I am passing here 10. Now what is the result of x y z? So here, so you can see the value is not iterable. It is not iterable. It is not iterable. It is not iterable means actually this destructuring is doing a work called iteration. So this destructuring is using a work called iteration. Iteration means a process of accessing the elements in sequential order. That means it is able to access a set of elements in sequential order. Iteration is a software design pattern which is used for accessing elements in sequential order. That means you can access elements in a sequential order one after another by using a concept called iteration. Actually, this destructuring is using a iterator. Iterator means, you know, for loops, for each for loops are there. By using that for, it is reading every value and using it. So internally, it is using a for reading every value from what? From collection. It is reading every value from the collection and storing first value here, second value here, third value here. Now you are passing only one value, then it shows a message that I can't iterate on this. That means a destructuring concept requires a iterable. Iterable means collection. That means destructuring requires a collection. Collection means, for example, I'm writing like this, 10 comma 20, this defined like this. That is not collection. How do we define the collection? Collection is defined in a square. So here we are defining the collection. Suppose 10, 30, some 40 like this. Now it is iterable. Now what this destructure will do? It is going to read every element from the collection in a sequential order, and it is to. That means here, what is the point you should know? Actually, you should know that this is an iterator. It is an iterator. So is an iterator. It is an iterator. Iterator means, so it needs, iterator means it needs only a collection. It needs only a collection of values to read. Direct value you cannot define. That means if you define var a comma b comma c is equal to 10, this is invalid. Why invalid? 10 is not iterable. So it is not iterable. That means you are defining 10 into this. That means it is not iterable. That means it is not iterable. So it is not iterable. So it is not iterable. Not iterable. That is the point it is. So you need to define a collection of values, then it will work. This is the new method, and this new method allows you to configure multiple variables, and directly you pass some multiple values into the variables. Instead of declaring separate variables, right? You can configure this. That means all are function variables now. Like that, all can be constants. all can be this. That means in many interviews, they even ask you like how to create a collection of constants. How to create a collection of constants now. How to create a collection of constants, set of constants. Set of constants, that means you can define here x, y, z. And here I am defining a const. I am configuring const. And into that you are initializing. So 10, 50 and 20. And you can see the initialization is there. A set of constants are initialized in this way. Actually, this is in programming techniques. Many programming languages call them as enumeration. They call them as enumeration. They call them as what? Enum. Enum is a collection of constants. It's a collection of constants. That means they ask, do you know how do you create like an enum? How do we create a set of constants? In JavaScript, it is possible by using this destructing technique. That means now this XYZ works like enums. Now, what is the meaning of enum? That means if it is var, later if I want into X, I can send welcome. Am I right? I can send welcome into X. It is going to store it. But once the values are initialized, I don't want to send any another value into it. Then we have to make it as what? Constant. We have to make it as constant so that it will not allow. That is called as enum. These are collection of constants. Collection of constants. You can configure a set of constants in this way. For example, these are used in various occasions. That means how do we define a collection of constants? So, or you can also call as what? Enum. Enumerations. And how you define an enumeration. So that is the answer. This is the example for that. Actually, these type of enums we use regularly, constants. How you define the constants regularly? For example, you see, I will write here. So the constant not found. I am writing here a constant not found, and its value is 404. I'm writing a constant called OK. So the request here is 200. So I'm writing like 302, and here I say redirect. And here I am defining the options. That means I want to print these actions. That means because it is a iterator, you can use another iterator. Later iterators we will learn. As of now, just we are defining the options. We are printing not found plus in the break. That means what is the value of not found. And this is just printing the values. I want to define here the value. Yep. Another value is what? Okay. Another value is what? Redirect. And you can see it is going to get those values and display 404, 200 and this. Actually, this is one concept here. Another point is, suppose I am defining, that means this is break. That is the break we are configuring. Now, actually, this is having a constant. What is the constant name? Not found. Document here, document dot write. I am printing here 404 is the value. 404 is the value. Now remember, we are accessing not found. That means it is accessing the value in that variable. That is a general reference technique here. Later you will learn. That means here we can access like that, right? That means we can access the value and you can define the value in that way. So not found. But now there is another technique which is introduced. For that, you need to learn some data types. Later, I will tell you. Actually, we have a technique of configuring like this constant and here an object, curly brace. So in this, suppose I defined some rate, and here I defined some count, and here we have a curly brace. In this, I defined rate is how much, suppose 4.5, and count is how much. So count is some 2000, like this. This is actually, previous one is array destructuring, iterator destructuring. This is not iterator. This is not iterator. This is not iterator. These are independent values now. These are independent values. These are not iterator. That means, so I'm using document.write. I say product rating, how much? I need to just access rate. I'm accessing just rate. I'm accessing the rate. It says 4.5. And another option is here I am defining in the next line. So count, that means count how much. So that means, so count is how much. Count is how much. We just access the count. We just access the count. This is the count. This is another way of configuring a variable. That means now what is this variable type? This is an object type of variable, actually we call it as. Later you will learn about data types, but this is also destructuring. Now what is the point here? So actually what is the concept here is, now into this, what type of data need to be stored? Into that, what type of data need to be stored? It is exactly known. You see, rate is directly available. What is the property to be stored? Rate. Suppose I am trying to store X is 10. Into that I am storing X. That means it will not allow that undefined. That means what is the concept about this? The concept about this is it defines strict rules of what should be the name. That means under which reference name I have to store. For example, I stored 10 or say 4.5, 4.3, and I said suppose 2000, that is invalid. Why? Because this expects a reference name. Reference name is what? Rate. Under that reference name, this value can be stored. Under another reference name, this value can be stored, and that reference name can be accessed and used. These are called object destructuring. Object destructuring. So these kind of array destructuring you will see later. So here we have rate, how much, and we have count, how much you can configure in this. Configure in this way. This is actually called object destructuring. That means we have another technique. This also allowed. That means variable declaration can be defined actually. So variable allows. So this object destructuring. Object destructuring. Actually, object comprises of properties. And values are stored under the reference of a property. Values are stored under the reference of a property. They are stored under the reference of a property. So variable allows to destructure. Object destructuring is defined like this. So where we have to define property 1 and we have to define property 2. How do we store values in that? We have to say property 1, what value, right? Property 2, what is the value, colon value. You have to define in this. Now, how you can access them? You can just access with the reference of property, right? So this is another technique of configuring the variables. These kind of declarations, these kind of references you will find in later stage very much. That means this is a little advanced way of configuring the variables to handle different data types. Actually, in this, we can store different options actually. That means I will later tell you. APIs working with a lot of object related data, JSONs and all. You will learn about that because still we haven't learned any data types. We are just discussing about only variables. So variable declarations, variable configurations have a lot of things. Destructuring of variable, this is how you destructure a variable. But what is the difference between array destructure, this and this? So actually this is iterator. That means it contains a collection of what values, and this is not an iterator, this is an object. It contains set of what? Properties and values. Properties under the property reference values. So properties can be individually accessed, and you can individually configure them. And how do we define iterators? How do we access iterators? That you are going to learn in array concept, right? In array, we will discuss about that. These are all the things you need to know about variables. All the things you need to know about variables. So variables, how to declare, what are the rules, and what is new about variables. What's the new concept you need to understand about variables, right? How we can declare multiple variables, how you can use those multiple variables, how to store data into those multiple variables. These all are important points. I hope you are clear in that. Okay. So how to create constants, collection of constants, enum like structures. That is also possible through variable declarations only. That means you can create a collection of constants by using which technique? So iterator technique. So that is iterator. Later you will learn some more concepts, but for that you need to learn arrays like things, then you can handle. We call them as reverse mapping techniques and all. There is other concept. For that we need to know another point now. So what is that? Is data types. So in JavaScript, now we are going to discuss another important concept, that is data types. And a very important point, actually we already know that here, very important, JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. It is not a strongly typed language. That means all JavaScript variables are implicitly typed. All JavaScript variables are implicitly typed. Implicitly typed means the data type of variable is decided according to value initialized or assigned. There is no restriction for data type. There is no restriction for type. So that is one big drawback of JavaScript. JavaScript don't have any type restrictions. Actually, what is the meaning of data type? The meaning of data type is nothing but data type defines data structure. Data type defines data structure. We call as DS, data structures. That means many people think this as a new concept or separate concept. Data structures is a very general concept. That means actually data structure defines what is data structure means. It is not only what type of data, it is also about how much data, the range, capacity, structure. That means how to handle a data in memory, how much data you can handle, what data you can handle. Generally, people think data type means only what type of data. It is not just what type of data, it is about how much data, what is the range of data, what is the rule for storing the data. All this comes under what? Data structure. Data structure actually, data structure defines data rules. Structure defines data rules, defines data rules, data rules. These are very important. And why we call implicitly typed? Because suppose var x equal to 10. That means what is x? X is what? Number. Later into x, I stored some a, then automatically x is string. It changes itself to string. And later if I send any true or anything into it, so x is boolean. X is boolean. It changes itself. That is the problem. That is the major issue that you have to face while working with this. That means data structure, we don't have data restrictions. It is implicitly typed. It's not a strongly typed language. It is implicitly typed. The data type will be changing according to value. There is no restriction. There is no restriction for that. That is the problem with the data types. And very important is actually, so we have to manually restrict the type using functions. That means before anybody stores a value, we have to verify is the value is the same what we are expecting, then we have to allow. That is the reason JavaScript requires a lot of validations before storing any data. Actually, several validations can be handled if your language is strongly typed. Because in other programming languages which are strongly typed, if you say x is integer, it will store only integer. It will not allow any another value. But in JavaScript, it is not so. So it is implicitly typed. But we have certain restriction for types. Certain restriction for type means it doesn't mean that you can store anything. That means what is the meaning of data structure? That means it is not strongly typed, but it can have restriction for data. Not about type of data. It can have restriction for data. For example, if I ask, it can have restriction for data. That means suppose if I ask, like suppose x var x equal to 10, then document dot write x equal to the value of x. Now if I ask how much value I can store in x, x is a number, am I right? If I ask a question like how much number I can store in x, is there any limit? There is limit. That means that is what we call data structure. That means if it doesn't know the data type, it doesn't mean that you can store anything you want. That means it doesn't have data type restriction, but it have range restriction. Type restriction is not there. That means number type, boolean type, any type you can store in a variable. But how much? There is a structure restriction. You cannot say that I can store any number. You can't store any number. They have a restriction for that number. For example, I will show you here. I will show you document dot write. Document dot write. I am using, yeah. Here I am using here. So minimum is equal to, so number dot min safe integer, And in the next line, max is equal to, so we have number dot max safe integer. And you can see this is the minimum and maximum number allowed in JavaScript. That means JavaScript don't have restriction for variable. That means you can store any type of value, but there is a structure for that value. That is why data type is not about just what type. Data type is about what range, what type, as well as what range. So you don't have type restriction, but you have range restriction. That is the reason a developer in JavaScript have to know. So number means what he can store. String means what he can store. The type restriction is very important. That means here data types actually, data type defines the structure of data. That means it defines the rules. Data rules means it is about type, it is about size, right? Everything comes under data structure. And very important, actually, JavaScript allows various types of data, which is classified into two groups. It is classified into two groups. We have primitive types and we have non-primitive types. Data types are classified into two types. We have primitive types and non-primitive types. Actually, what are primitive types? Primitive types are nothing but generally primitive types are some immutable types. Immutable types means their structure cannot be changed. That means what they have fixed range for values. They have fixed range for values. Their structure cannot change. They have fixed range for values. That means just now I showed you, if I ask how much number I can store, is there any limit for number? Yes, there is limit for number. That means primitive types cannot change the structure. Suppose if you ask like, can I store one more extra value other than this? You can't. It's not possible. That means a number can be only within this range. A number cannot be outside this range. That means there is a fixed range for value. That means you can exactly tell what kind of data can be inside and how much range can be inside. There is nothing like I don't know. That means you can say which number is stored, I don't know. But I can say how much number can be stored, limit I know. The range can be defined. So primitive types, immutable means what? Immutable means their structure cannot change. Not about changing value. Value is not immutable. It is not about value. Immutable is about structure. That means, can I change the number structure? No, it is fixed. You cannot change the number structure. It must be only within that range. So that is why we call them as immutable types. And actually, they use a stack mechanism. They use a stack mechanism. They use a stack. Stack uses last in, first out mechanism. They use a stack mechanism. That means the last value goes in, the first value comes. That is what assignment is doing. You assign the last value. That is the value that you will see first. The last value goes in, that is the value that comes first. And what are the JavaScript primitive types? JavaScript primitive types, we have number, we have string, we have Boolean, so we have null, so we have undefined, we have null, and we have undefined, and we have a symbol type. Symbol. These are the data types. These are all primitive types, and symbol is new from ES6 onwards.
From in year 6, they introduced a new type called symbol. What is these data types? Now, what are these primitive types, non-primitive types? We will see, right? That we'll see in next session. Tomorrow we'll do that. Right, in tomorrow's session, we will discuss about numbers, how to deal with numbers in JavaScript. What is number type, how it works. Then we can try some examples on these numbers, how to work with numbers and deal with. Some real world examples we will see with numeric types, right? Where and how they are used. Okay. Then tomorrow we'll continue with this. Okay, now, right.